Okay, we have 23 students connected. Let's wait just a couple of minutes. How many of you are connected and listening me? Can you raise your virtual hands or just write yes in the chat box? Good. Okay, everyone, yes. Good. Okay. Let me share the screen and fine. Good, good. Okay, I'll check the attendance later. So let me share the screen. Here you go. Have you consulted the LMS notes section?
No, sir.
So you just can let me show you. Yeah, there I have uploaded PPTs. Some of them you can consult and explore. Some reading text as well. Some from books, some from downloaded sources as well. So you have to manage the time. Two things: you have to manage the time, and you have also develop the interest in reading or going through those materials. So yeah, here you go. And where is it? Is it visible to you? So here's the notes, PPTs on Allegory of Cave and the Communist Manifesto. Some of the PPTs just you can consult for your exploration, not only for, there is nothing else more than that the key points of the concept only. So based on the concept you can explore further. The second thing is there is the Myth of Sisyphus by Camus. So this Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus is interpretation, and for further reading we have the text here as well. So you can go through this reading text, but today we are going to discuss about this first one or first section. So let me look at this. You can download from here and enjoy the reading. And today we have some pages to read and discuss. Then so far we have only one way of delivering the lecture, and I'm not sure that all of you have gone through the text previously of two previous philosophical essays. But here what we are going to discuss is today we are all focusing on the reading, self-reading, and also listening. There are some 8-9 pages here. So let's go through this. Everyone read the silently, make the silent reading. And if it is clearly visible to you. Okay, this is only the interpretation. This is not that text, but in your book, in your textbook that you have got. If you haven't got the books are in the library as well. You can consult the library also, or some of the text. You can just, no need to worry about the text. I will provide you every text in the. If you are far from the valley, far from your college, just you have to stay at home and go through the text unless and until we have the very normal cases or normal condition of the classes. But hope very soon. It has already been mentioned that the Lalitpur district has also is the local governance of Lalitpur district has also allowed for has permitted for the permission for these schools and colleges and educational institutions run from tomorrow, day after tomorrow, not day after, first of this Ashoj. So we may have normal classes or physical classes as well.
Sir, from Ashoj first.
Ashoj first, yes. Some of the institutions have, especially in school level, they have started from day before yesterday as well. But from first of Ashoj, there may be more probability. Let's see what happens. It will be decided.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir. Yesterday, I consulted with a problem. She told our college may start after the say.
Yeah, the college has not yet decided regarding the physical classes, resumption of physical classes. But you are right in that matter. They have not decided yet. But I just talked about the metropolitan, whatever the local governance has decided. So not the institutions. Okay. So shall we move further here? Albert Camus, the essay, philosophical essay by Albert Camus, the Myth of Sisyphus. You must have heard about this, the story of Sisyphus, or was the story of Sisyphus. A person uh, has some tiring job, carries the load or the stone, just walks with it, carries that on the top of the hill, then that again falls, rolls down on the bottom of it. Then he carries on that very tiring job, and frequently does the same, continues the same job, and never gets able to get success, or to put that on the top of the mountain or the hill. So this is simply the Sisyphus, whatever he does. And this is a myth of Sisyphus, one of the ancient period, one of the ancient related to uh, story, whatever Albert Camus talks about in this story, in this essay. It is philosophical essay. So let's everyone make the silent reading, and I will make some of you to read. Just this is for listening purpose. Ekikrit, can you read out from the beginning, some 1 or 2 pages, and then I will talk. I will consult another one.
Yes,
So
sir.
it is all for listening. We everyone just read and listen. Uh, Make the silent reading, and one of the student will read for us, and will listen. After listening, after finishing this, we'll have listening, reading, and then after we'll have discussion further. Okay, you please.
Albert Camus was a French writer trained in philosophy. He was born in Algeria and educated at the University of Algiers. In the 1940s, Algeria was French, and after it became independent in the late 1950s, Camus was eventually able to maintain his French citizenship. His health was never very good, so that whereas his father died in World War in 1914, Camus was prevented from serving in the French armed forces during World War II because of recurrent attacks of tuberculosis. Tuberculosis also prevented him from being a teacher of philosophy. After trying a number of jobs, Camus discovered that he was a proficient journalist. He worked in both Paris and Algeria during the German occupation of France, 1940 to 1944. He even wrote for the French resistance underground paper Combat. It was during this time that he began to write philosophical fiction and commentary. His first novel, The Stranger, was written in 1940 and was published in 1942. Its theme was the absurd. It, it told the story of a strange man living in a moral wilderness, a man who was unable to see life as meaningful in a genuine way. Camus, Camus's preoccupation with the absurd, his great theme in literature, was partly a product of his anxiety about the destructive and absurd World War One. Such exercises in futility may have had an influence on such a figure as Camus's Sisyphus. The Myth of Sisyphus is a philosophical essay on suicide and the absurd, is among the best known works of Camus. Others are his novels The Plague (1947), The Fall (1956), which made him one of the most widely read writers of his time. Also a gifted playwright, he wrote Caligula (1945), State of Siege (1948), and The Just Assassins 1950, The Rebel, 1951, is an extended essay on political dissent. Camus won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1957. Perhaps it is a mere twist of irony or an expression of fate congruent with his own philosophy, but Camus died in a car crash at the age of 46 in his literary prime. The Myth of Sisyphus is a meditation on the theme of suicide. Camus was faced with the view that life itself is without meaning. The traditional values had been weakened by war, lack of faith in authority, attacks on religion, and the worldwide economic depression that cast everything into doubt. Camus was searching through his own thoughts about suicide to see if he would come to a conclusion that about life that would be positive. His question was, how does humankind live in an absurd world? He treats the ancient myth as an allegory of our own time. Sisyphus, Camus explains, was assigned a repetitive task which would last through eternity as punishment for his rebellion against the gods. Sisyphus loved life so much that he ignored the gods' command to remain underground in Hades. As a result, they gave him the task of pushing a rock up a mountain, and when he reached the top, it rolled back down the hill again. Then he had to push the rock up again the hill again. In examining this myth, uh, Camus found a parallel for man's condition in a world without meaning, a world whose values were self-created or at least community-created, a world in which many people do things as repetitive and as meaningless as what Sisyphus must do. It insight into the fact that Sisyphus knows what he is doing, that gives Camus courage. Like Sisyphus, Camus tells us humans make their own fate, their own choices, and to that extent are in control of their own destinies. By defying the gods, Sisyphus made his choice and his fate.
Yes, thank you very much. Now let yeah finish this as well. This last paragraph.
The gods had condemned Sisyphus to ceaselessly rolling a rock to the top of a mountain, whence the stone would fall back to its own weight, of its own weight. They had thought with some reason that there is no more dreadful punishment than futile and hopeless labor. According to Homer, Sisyphus was the wisest and most prudent of mortals. According to another tradition, however, he was disposed to practice the profession of highwayman. I see no contradiction in this. Opinions differ as to the reasons why he became the futile laborer of the underworld. To begin with, he is accused of certain levity in regard to the gods. He stole their secrets. Aegina, the daughter of Aesopus, was carried off by Jupiter. The father was shocked at the disappearance and complained to Sisyphus. He who knew of the abduction to the celestial thunderbolts, he preferred the benediction of water. He was punished for this in the underworld. Homer tells us also that Sisyphus had put death in chains. Pluto could not endure the sight of eternal torment. He dispatched the god of war to avenge the death of her conqueror.
Yes, thank you very much. So just we are reading only for two reasons. One for listening, and another for just getting the interpretation how the text has made. So let me call upon uh, Prasanna Basnet. Are you there? Prasanna. Okay. Divas Barakoti. Dia. Yeah, Utsav Bhatta. Can you unmute yourself, please? Sophocles. Dost okay. Dostoevsky's. Yes, thank you very much. So only reading, no more discussion now, only reading. Let me call upon Kizen, are you there? Or Riva Sakya? Riva,
Yes, sir.
it makes you comfortable for your presentation later as well. So Riva, let's, okay, you read from here, one does.
One does not discover the absurd without being tempted to write a manual of happiness. What by such narrow ways? There is but one word. However, happiness and the absurd are two sons of the same earth. They are inseparable. It, it would be a mistake to say that happiness necessarily springs from the absurd discovery. It happens as well that the feeling of the absurd springs from happiness. Oh, I conclude that all all is well, says Octopus, and that remark is sacred. It echoes in the wild and limited universe of man. It teaches that all is not has not been exhausted. It drives out of this world a God who had come into with dissatisfaction and a preference for futile sufferings. It makes of fate a human matter which must be settled among men. All Sisyphus' silent joy is contained therein. His fate belongs to him, his rock is a thing. Likewise, the absurd man, when he contemplates his torment, silences all the idols. In the universe, suddenly restored to its silence, the myriad wondering little voices of the earth rise up, unconscious, secret calls, invitations from all the faces. They are the necessary reverse and price of victory. There is no sun without shadow, and it is essential to know the night. The absurd man says yes, and his efforts will henceforth be unceasing. If there is a personal fate, there is no higher destiny, or at least there is but one which he concludes is inevitable and despicable. For the rest, he knows himself to be the master of his days. At that subtle moment, when man glances backward over his life, Sisyphus returning toward his rock, in that slight pivoting, he contemplates that series of unrelated actions which become his fate, created by him, combined under his memory's eye, and soon sealed by his death. Thus, convinced of the holy human origin of all that is human, a blind man eager to see who knows that the night has no end. He is still on the go, the rock is still rolling. I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burden again, but Sisyphus teaches the higher uh, fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes he too concludes that all is well. This universe henceforth, without a master, seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a world. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much. This is what we just interpreted. This is what is in our text. So this is the interpretation of the essay by Albert Camus. We generally say Camus for our ease or for our comfort, but He is generally pronounced as Albert Camus. Camus, not so Camus. Albert Camus, and the myth of Sisyphus. So Sisyphus is one of the character, and once he was the king of any particular region. He did not obey the god, did not listen the god, and did not try to obey them. Then God punished them. The punishment was just to put that heavy load, carry that, and put that the stone on the top of the mountain. He did this. It was continuous and tiring job he did, but never he was able to succeed. Put that rock on the top of the mountain. Again, it rolled down back to the on the bottom, and he had to carry it again, and this continued. So this kind of tiring and repetitive nature of job. So here the matter, the allegory that is represented through this character, but the matter something else is even advanced. So we'll talk about how does that apply in our day-to-day lives, what human life, how to live. This teaches us some lessons of human life. But before that further discussion, now look into the glossary and notes, because some characters here from the ancient Greek times, some from other. So just look at into the glossaries and notes as given here. Before we read the text, it is very crucial to get some ideas on it. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So Homer, this is ancient Greek poet. We have heard the Homer, the character Homer, or the philosopher, Greek poet, and he portrays Sisyphus in the Iliad. He has written the book. Homer has written the book Iliad, and in that story also he has portrayed Sisyphus. So Sisyphus is one of the ancient character. He has been portrayed in so many other masterpieces, other works, and Homer has also portrayed Sisyphus in his Iliad. Uh, then Aeneas Jupiter seduced her in the form of a flame. Aeneas Jupiter, we have this character in the Sisyphus myth of Sisyphus as well. So when Aesopus bribed Sisyphus with water and discovered who had taken his daughter, Jupiter hurled thunderbolts as Aesopus and turned him back. Aegina seems to have perished in the storm. So where did it go? No, it was all it was perished in the storm. Pluto is the god of the underworld. There is the character Pluto in the Sisyphus as well, myth of Sisyphus. Mercury is the messenger of the gods and also the Italian god of the merchants, particularly of grain dealers. Knights of Gethsemane. This is a reference to Christ's discussions. Jesus Christ's discussions with his uh, epistles and agonizing prayer in the gardens of Gethsemane on the evening before his crucifixion. So this character is also just pictured where in the essay. Oedipus is a play. This Oedipus, as we said, Oedipus as the character as well. Oedipus in the play, Oedipus, the king of Sophocles, uh, 419, 495 to 406 BC before Christ. Oedipus as the character who had been told his fate. What was told to him? He was told his fate, and he moved to another country, go another country to escape it. He ironically moved exactly the place where his fate to kill his father. Oedipus is said to be he has killed his father, and he then married his mother. So was to be carried out. So that is one of the mythology in the myth of Sisyphus or Oedipus, one of the character who killed his father and then had to marry his mother. Another character this is another note, another glossary. Dostoevsky's Kirillov. This is the reference of Alexia Nilitz Kirill's, a character in the novel, and also this character has been taken as the reference in this essay. So this is the novel Possessed, 1871, by Russian novelist Fedor Dostoevsky. His full name, Fedor Dostoevsky, from 1821 to 1881. So Kirillov is an existentialism, uh, and he kills himself. He is the subject of a chapter in Myth of Sisyphus. So as the subject of chapter here has been taken. So these ancient characters have been referenced in this essay as well. So regarding his what actually is the writing style? What is the style of writing? Camus rhetoric here. Rhetoric means the way somebody has somebody has written that text, maintaining or following that style. So so here Camus rhetoric regarding this. One of the most important rhetorical device Camus uses is part of his style, the allegory. We have already said allegory is just the representation which has some implication of this allegory in others' lives as well. Allegory is a narrative, like you narrate something, and that has become universal or most applicable in many others' lives. Allegory is a narrative in which the principal character or the situations, it may be character or it may be situation. Like earlier we had the situation in Allegory of the Cave, and also we had the principal characters, just unnamed character who came out of the cave and just uh, returned back to teach others. But this may be the situation, and okay, situation that stand for other people or other situations. So that we can call this as the representation. It is carefully extended metaphor that has been used in the Sisyphus myth of Sisyphus as well. In the case of myth of Sisyphus, Camus tells us a classical myth. He gives us some of the details as they appear in Homer, they appear in others works by other classical writers. So then he gives us the version of what Sisyphus is doing in the myth. Here Sisyphus is just carrying the same load day and night, or frequently again and again. This is what he is repeating in this myth of Sisyphus. So he is hoping that we will eventually see how Sisyphus' situation is parallel to that of most people. It is Sisyphus is the representation here. We are all Sisyphus in one way, because we have same routine works, nature of job, sufferings. Life is full of suffering, and the message here, the Sisyphus represents is life is all absurd. What is meant by absurd? Any idea? Absurd means,
Illogical.
mm, let's say simply meaningless, अर्थहीन, कुनै अर्थ नभएको, absurd. So life is absurd. All is well. He just self-satisfies, and he says life is absurd, life is meaningless, life is futile. uh, you expect something else, but you have to do something else. So there is contradiction. Your hopes are different, your wishes are different, but your doings are different. You might have seen so many people just doing the job like Sisyphus in the myth of Sisyphus. He also is hopeful that we also think how Sisyphus situation is parallel, comparable to most of the people, similar to most of the people. We have been so far clear that Sisyphus does this tiring job and has not been successful whatever he had been expected to do. In addition to his use of allegory, this is we must be very careful what how has this allegory talks about other situations, the rest of the world. How does it represent the rest of the people or the human life? Camus is also adept. He is expert, quite clear at another classical form, the aphorism. One allegory, keep that in mind, and the second one is aphorism, a pithy statement. And this aphorism is a saying that seems to contain wisdom, that contain morality, that contain good judgment, and partly because it resembles all the wise old saws that have been passed down through the ages, from established in tradition, and we believe they are good for us. They are good for our lives because they had been supported and followed by ancestors. So, such as there are some quotations, and you can just interpret or just understand this aphorism as kind of sayings or some quotations like we are uh, familiar with sayings like a penny saved is a penny earned. Yeah, this is one of the aphorism, and such all is well is there in one in the text. All is well. Have you heard this? All is well in one of the movie in Indian Bollywood movie.
Yes, sir.
Which one?
Three Idiots.
Three Idiots. They are quite interesting to show that judgment. All is well, bhaiya. All is well. Yes. So this one, a penny saved is a penny earned, or a setting hen never lays. Like we have in Nepali as well, a barking dog never bites. So such are the aphorisms. Camus has used them as well. Camus uses such aphoristic lines as "There is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn" in paragraph 6. "There is no sun without shadow" in paragraph 9. "One always finds one's burden again" in paragraph 10. So these are some of the aphorisms the writer, the essayist Albert Camus has used in this essay. So there is a false sky quality of these aphorisms, but they also operate to make the entire tone of the or message of the passage. They seem wise and they also seem thoughtful. If we look at this, just consider this: there is no sun without shadow. Is that possible? This is the quotation. This is general saying. This is what we call universal uh, belief in universal believing or universal belief system or general understanding of the people. So they are quite wise and thoughtful, the aphorisms that have been used here. One very interesting aspect of this selection is the mode of address Camus uses. So the address he uses is he seems to have imagined a specific kind of audience, but that is there is no specific kind of audience that it applies. Rather, it is applicable to all of us, and he goes about addressing it in a manner suggesting unusual intimacy. He begins sentences with "as you have already grasped." His essay begins with this: "You as you have already grasped." And again I fancy Sisyphus returning toward his rock. You might have already grasped, you might have already understood, you might have already considered or perceived. But again, I imagine Sisyphus returning toward his rock and begins the final paragraph. This is his beginning, and he begins his final paragraph with "I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain." So that's interesting because he is never able to get out of that foot of the mountain. He has the repetitive job, nature of the job, and routine job, but is not able to succeed. So life is all futile. Life is all meaningless. Life is all full of sufferings. Life is all uh, like the representation of the Sisyphus. He tries to give us his philosophical note. One. The second thing, we also discuss philosophical uh, suicide as well in this essay. Philosophical suicide, absurdity of human life, the sufferings of Sisyphus, but never ever to lose those and confined with the sufferings. Hopeful, hopefulness is another aspect here. The result is that we have the impression that we have overheard a one-sided conversation that is pleasant and that is intimate. So this is to makes one-sided conversation. He uses "I fancy this," "I leave Sisyphus this," and so on. This is all the interpretation of the text. There are some discussion questions, and these are what we are expected to do and to discuss after. We will be able to discuss all this in depth, in not in surface, only in depth, after we have gone through the essay. So these are the questions here. For example, let's only look at question number 6 assignment. These are reading, exploration, reading, and then only writing or writing assignments. So consider some of the statements Camus makes about fate. What does he consider the fate? Inventory the essay for them. What according to Camus is fate? How does he define? Be sure to look up the word in a good dictionary, consult dictionary. Also look up the words tragedy and tragic as well. So what is their connection with fate? Has something fate related to tragic aspect, or something tragedy or absence of tragedy, is that fate? Then if there occurs some tragedy, again we call this fate. It is all because of fate. Poor Sisyphus fate. So write an essay relying on the statements you have found, which will clarify the nature of the fate as Camus sees it. Be sure to consider such issues as what Camus means when he says that there is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn. You have to, if good happens, you will say it is because of fate. If bad happens, if something tragic happens, again we call this is all because of fate. So regarding this quotation aphorism that he has used in the essay, we'll discuss, and we will write our viewpoints. Also consider the ways in which someone like Sisyphus, or even you as you can represent as the Sisyphus, and everyone, as we said earlier, can or is the Sisyphus, or can have the Sisyphus, the condition of Sisyphus similar to him. So he can be said to be fashioning his own fate. Does the person, and the questions here, does the person create his own fate? Is the person responsible his choices, of his uh, of his doings, of his deeds? How far, to what extent a person can create his own fate? There are so many questions related to fate, suffering, human life, tragedy, how to live the life, and so on in the essay. Uh, I just recommend you and suggest you to read this interpretation. This is in our textbook. So I have provided this from your textbook. This is all about the interpretation, but not only that, we have to go in the second chapter, that is uh, here. So let me share the screen again. Another note, as you can see here, that is for further reading, I have just uploaded. I could not send you through your email. How many of you just checked your email, and did you get something else, some document in your email as well? Okay, I have sent this the same this PDF in your. Okay, good. Okay, so that one, the first one that we have just discussed, I have shared that one with you. And the second one is, as you can see here in the notes section, is it visible to you? What can you see on the topic, this title? For further reading, yes. So if we just go through this, it is a bit lengthy. Here, this is the PDF. Again, we have 24 pages here. If you read this much, very interesting. You will dive into the, not into the stream, you will dive into the sea, and it has different enjoyment. You will just enjoy this, quite interesting. Interesting in the sense that it is quite extended. That was the previous one was just the interpretation. This one is the story, the essay that begins here. So in the first paragraphs, just he makes the one who has written this makes the myth of Sisyphus its background. Then this country talks about some more confrontation that has been epitomized in this. The plague, as we said, was one of his earlier writing, where he discusses the painful death of a child and so on. Then Camus draws the political moral from his confrontation with the absurd. Is it clearly visible? Okay, so you can have further interpretation, and we have time. We have interest as well. So why should not? Why we won't turning the page? Why would we do not turn the pages of these writings? So interesting part is this, and this is the essay, the myth of Sisyphus, an absurd reasoning, an absurd meaningless. If you look at life is full of sufferings and so on, you won't do anything, you won't do something to achieve the success, isn't it? If you just look at the dark side of the life, the sufferings of the life, will you work out, will you do something for your life? Of course not. So absurdity and suicide, this is philosophical suicide, consciousness, and there is absurdity, meaninglessness. So let's look at this. We have 5 minutes left though. And I just recommend you to go through this one today. Enjoy. This is clear and very easy understanding. So you have to invest some 1 hour, let's say, within 1 hour, just to make this reading, superficial reading for this text as well. We'll have more understanding of, detailed understanding of the text than only the interpretations. Like absurd walls there, like great works, deep feelings always mean more than they are conscious of saying. So look at the one sentence, how weighty is this, how much meaningful has that, the meaning, deep meaning is that it has brought. So it talks about these writings. So once today, if you go through this writing, we will have one more class tomorrow on it, on this. So we'll conclude the essay in our next class tomorrow. Are there any questions for this discussion today? If you have discussion for 4 minutes, we'll discuss on some questions related to the topic. And before that, I recommend you to go through the text. You can download this and just consult this. Are there any questions? Nobody has written any question in the chat box.
So which mythology does this story involve? Is it Greek?
Yeah, it's based on Greek, but Albert Camus is the French writer, based on France. So if we say the origin of the philosophy, that mostly has been related with the Greek, ancient Greek, not modern Greek. The ancient Greek philosophy, Latin Greek, they were the real origin of most of the mythologies, philosophy regarding the Eastern philosophy, but Western philosophy, sorry. in regarding Eastern philosophy, we have our own, but this is related to French or mainly Greek philosophy. For what purpose he was punished by the god? God of the underworld. Utsa, it is very simply and basically, he did not obey the god's commands, did not obey the god's, let's say, orders. That's why he was the king. Perhaps his nature was that, and he did not obey them, obey the god's command, and then he was punished for this same irritating and tiring job he had to carry out. If you look at this story in the YouTube as well, or in look at just Google, search Google the Sisyphus only, you will find out a heavy load just carrying on his souls on his back, and just he carries on the top of the hill. But again, that drops down. Our Dunga Mathibata Talakasa. So he is never to stop, to succeed in that is right done, whatever he has to do. Any further? Okay. So we'll discuss further. Please let me just take your attendance. Don't leave now. Within 2 minutes. Amit Acharya.
Present, sir.
Khushbu.